tonight we're going to talk about the influences of Christianity that aren't from the Old Testament. Now, I put pagan in the title. I use that term pagan in the sense that the Christians use the term pagan, which is basically anything that's not, Judeo-Christian. But that term pagan really doesn't really exist. Nobody calls themselves pagan. So it's kind of a derogatory term for the others. But those others happen to have just as much, if not even more, influence on Christian theology as some of these Orthodox or Judean sources do. So without further ado, let's get into it. Welcome back to the Gnostic Informant, and you are about to attain true gnosis. And today, David McDonald from Deep Drinks Podcast. The link is in the description, so go and hit that subscribe button, hit that bell, and you do a lot of stuff. You're touching on many different topics, all different exciting stuff. You got good guests, you got great topics, great everything, great editing, and
Thank you.
and you're about to be, from what I've understood, you're about to be doing a lot more work going forward because you're not going to have some more time to do some of this stuff.
Yeah. I recently changed career paths. I've left the company. I've been there for 11 years, primarily so I can focus on deep drinks. As with the new job I have, I'll be able to be very flexible. So I have a consistent time slot, and we're grinding on that bad boy. But yeah, it's been absolutely awesome. And I was just doing this as we started because deep drinks, right? Like I'm always got a drink with me. But I realized I need like some sort of goblet or like some sort of deep drinks goblet that I need to have. But yeah, straight after this stream, actually, we have Finding ET with Sociological Impact with Dr. Aaron Adair. He worked for SETI, the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence. So that's going to be a wild episode. Yeah.
Really? What do they do? What do they do in that place?
So have you seen that movie Contact?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's those guys. It's like it's like what they were based on.
Wow, so they're just sitting there all day, like trying to find stuff out there. That's crazy.
Yeah. So he did his internship there, and he's like a PhD physicist and a Bible scholar, and he wrote a book talking about like the sociological and religious like impacts of what would happen if we found do we have evidence of aliens? Like, what about all the UFOs? What are the chances? Like, what would an alien religion look like? What would it like if they were aliens? Like, what are the chances there are aliens? Like, we're just going to very alien heavy episode, but focusing on like the religious and philosophical and sociological aspects of of first contact, what it would actually mean.
Wow,
so that'll be interesting. That's
awesome. I'm looking forward to that. Yeah, let's get into and it doesn't have to be Christian. It doesn't have to be the New Testament either. You can, I think that you were talking before about you were talking, and you cited Josh Bowen for this as some of these early Sumerian, and some people might be familiar with this, but I'm sure there's some people here right now who are probably like, wait, what? So let's start with that, because I think this is going back to the beginning, to the roots of everything. Is this?
Yeah, well as you know, Jesus is clearly prophesied in the Old Testament, so it makes sense to start at the Old Testament. That was a joke. Remember anyway.
I brought something to add to this that I just found that hardly anyone knows about El.
Okay.
About El.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I want you to start off though. I want you to set the tone, and then I'm gonna.
All right.
And this is I'll be the cherry on top with this one.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm telling you guys, this is gonna be a source that you're gonna either laugh at or just be like, "What?" Like just bring it right. Wait till I bring it on the table.
So it's amazing. Okay, so one of the things that so I read. Are you familiar with this book here?
Oh,
the Atheist Handbook to the Old Testament.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So chapter 7, Dr. Josh talks about how he's an Assyriologist, and he talks about going to his like to teach the adult group at the church, and they're teaching them about like the Bible and Assyriology and everything like that. And so we asked everyone, who's the big Bible scholars in this room? And someone he quotes the scripture, and then someone says that's in Ezekiel, and then he quotes another scripture, and someone says that's in John, and then he quotes this, and all these hands go up, and they all say it's the flood of Noah.
What? Okay, so what was the quote?
The quote is, the seventh day when it came, I brought out a dove. I let it loose. Off went the dove, but then it returned. Then was no place to land, so it came back to me. I brought out a swallow. I let it loose. Off went the swallow. And then it returned. There was no place for it to land, so it came back to me. I brought out a raven. I let it loose. Off went the raven. It saw the waters proceeding, finding food, bowing and bobbing. It did not come back to me. So
don't tell him what it is yet. Now, I just want to show something, just for anybody who's like, here's what Genesis says. After 40 days, Noah opened a window. He made the ark, sent out a raven. You already said that in your quote. Like, what did you have? A different translation than me, maybe? Okay. And it kept flying back, and then he sent a dove out. Oh, you said that too. Oh, so it's the same text, but you probably just have a different translation. Maybe that's why it's a little bit different, right? Right?
Yeah, it must be. Yeah. Well, the thing, so
you got to tell him. You got to tell him what it is.
Okay, so this is from the Epic of Gilgamesh. So this is lines 147 to 156.
That was not Genesis. That was what he read. No. Epic of Gilgamesh. What is it? 2,000 years older than the Bible?
Well, I did so much non-scholarly research.
I'll be generous. 1,500 years older than the Bible.
Oh, it depends. It depends because the Epic of Gilgamesh was written over 2,000 years. So some Christian apologists will say they'll try and say that the flood narrative wasn't fully formed until you get to like the later parts of it. But if you can pull up the graph that I made, also fact check this graph. I've fact checked it a lot myself, but it could be wrong. But you see this, I made this right based on the sources that I could find. But you see this like yellow line here, like down the middle. That's when the Epic of Gilgamesh was created. Maybe I could share my screen so I could zoom in. Actually,
yeah, that'll be better. Actually,
let me just quickly find it.
So, and while you're looking that up, the idea that two different stories can have a similar, like he let out a bird. Okay, that's like, okay, that could be a coincidence. But when it's specific to the raven and the dove, and you're in a boat, and a flood just happened, and God just wiped everything off the earth, those are so specific that the odds of two different stories telling this story this way is just impossible.
This is just one thing, by the way. We got like a lot of stuff. So you see here, so we have the Epic of Gilgamesh that happens, it's written between 2100 to 1200 BCE. But then you have Genesis, which is written 600 to 500 BCE, and you've got this 600-year gap. So you got 600 years between when Genesis was written and when the Epic of Gilgamesh, what I just read, was written. And you can just see, I could list off the things that you find in the Epic of Gilgamesh. So the creation of humans in both stories, humans are shaped from the earth. In Genesis, God forms Adam from dust of the ground.
I'm glad you have Genesis and Exodus correctly dated to 5th and 6th century, because people say, 800s, no way. Show me one place, one person citing Genesis in the 8th century or 7th century. Like nobody's not mentioned anywhere. Like nobody's talking about it. Then it starts showing up late, and I'm glad that you had that, because I've seen people, even skeptics, that will grant that it's in the 700s maybe. Like, no, it's not. It's not.
I know, and
you know what I mean.
And I know, and the other thing too is like, and you got like the difference between like the Exodus, that actually like the Bible dates the Exodus, and then like when it was written, when the story was written down, and you've got this 1300-year gap, or 700-year gap, and then but the thing here with Proverbs,
it gets even worse than that for the Exodus. Exodus. So the Exodus, people try to say that it's the Hyksos. The Hyksos explosion's in 1500 BCE. 1300 is when the story in the Bible lines up, if you do the math. But what happened in 1300 BCE is the opposite. In fact, Pharaoh Ramses conquers Israel in 1300 BCE. So that would mean that Moses and the Israelites went into the promised land and then got conquered again by Egypt, but the Bible forgot to mention that.
Mm.
But you want to know why? Because that would be like, what's up with this promise that here's your land? Oh, by the way, you're going to get conquered one more time, and then I'm going to make another promise. That wouldn't pan out right. So that whole history is gone. It doesn't even exist. They don't even say the Pharaoh's name, by the way. So it's not. It's not
our first reference of Israel as a group of people is the Meneptah seal, and that is still like that's long after the last strokes of the Epic of Gilgamesh have even been.
But even that might be. I've heard scholars, and I think this makes more sense, that it's not Israel, it's Jezreel.
Oh, okay.
If you look at that text, and by the way, Jezreel and Israel would look the same in that in that font, or not font, in that script. Sorry, that's that very script. If you write Jezreel and Israel, it looks the same. Mm-hmm. And it's possible that Israel even got its name from the city of Jezreel. Maybe I'm not. Don't quote me on that. But the reason why I'm saying that is because the text is naming cities. It's going, here's this city, here's this city, here's this city. Why would they just throw a kingdom of Israel in there? It's just naming cities. And Jezreel, we know Jezreel is an ancient city from that time period. Now here's here's the kicker. Why would Israel randomly be mentioned in this one text and then never again for another 500 years?
That's a good point. I didn't even know that. I didn't even know that.
Those scholars, I don't have the names on the top of my head, but I should do a video on this. I can show you. There are some scholars who think. I think what's his name? Israel Finkelstein's one of them. Israel Finkelstein, who's a brilliant expert.
He wrote the book Jesus, right?
He thinks it's like 900, 800 BCE when Israel shows up.
That's okay. Well, it's not just the Genesis with the Epic of Gilgamesh. It's not just that one part of the flood that's taken, like the fact that there is a worldwide flood. It's for one, it's the earliest story that we have. One of the earliest stories that we have, the Epic of Gilgamesh. But the creations of humans is the same. Like they're both are formed from the dust of the earth. A goddess, Aruru, creates Enkidu from clay. The existence of the garden. So both narratives mention a garden with sacred trees. In Genesis, it's the Garden of Eden with the Tree of Knowledge and the Tree of Life. In Gilgamesh, there's this sacred cedar tree, a forest, guarded by the demon Humbaba. Both stories, there's serpent and immortality. So, like, you have to, like...
What's the name of the demon?
Humbaba.
Humbaba, huh? Hold on a second.
But
no way.
Hang on, just to pump the brakes. You have to remember too, like we're looking back at all this stuff, just assuming that they had the same perspective of what we have today.
I gotta show something real quick before we move on to the next thing. This is just the Wikipedia page, okay? I get it. Oh, you're showing Wikipedia, but I just want to let you know this is what the text looks like, okay? So you're looking at that. Is that Israel? How do you know? And look, if you actually go down, it actually tells you there are some people who thinks this is. Look at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people, or this might just be 3 or 4. But anyways, you have multiple experts saying it's Jezreel. It's Jezreel. So I'm going with that. Wow. I think there's more. I think it's not just you could say I'm being biased right now, sure. But logically, it does not make sense that Israel would just randomly pop up in a list of cities and then not show up again for another 500 years. It just doesn't make sense logically. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So I think this makes the most sense. All right, go ahead.
I was just going to say, someone's asked, where does the timeline come from? So I created that timeline as a non-historian, but I'm not releasing it or anything. I used a bunch of different books and to get the best dates for the timeline, but fact check me by all means with this timeline, because and I try to be as conservative as possible. So you see here how it says like Proverbs. Let me just skip over to a sec. See how it says Proverbs. The reason I got dots here is because like it is so heated whether or not Proverbs was written, because some people say no, it was written by Solomon in 1000 BCE, but then people are like, well, but then there are parts that are like, well, no, it was definitely written at 500 BC. So it's like there's different parts. But the point of it is, even if you take the most conservative times, it's still 200 years since the instructions of Eminope. Eminope. I always get that name wrong, but which we'll go into in a little bit. But yeah, it's just really wild. But even looking back, like you think, oh, you look back at like you have the the underworld and eternity and all that stuff. No, like these are taken from other religions of the area. Like it's not like this like divisible line. Like there are belief systems that like kind of that all get kind of meshed together. Like when the Buddha came, and he just assumed reincarnation was a thing because that's the culture that he was brought up in. He didn't which to me points to thinking that maybe the Buddha didn't have anything super amazing to say because he was just a product of his time. But like he just was brought up and goes, yep, reincarnation is a thing because he's in the environment in which reincarnation was a thing. Like it's not he didn't question it. So you got to look back and go at this kind of stuff and go, where are they getting the influences? Like it's all kind of meshed together. It's not just like one big. Israel has one belief, and this other groups have other beliefs, and yeah, it all kind of combines at one stage. Because like even if you see here, like even if you see like there was no Israel until this first mention, like and unless we're talking about
if let's just for the sake of argument, let's say that those scholars who think it's Jezreel are right, which I think they are. I think logically it just makes sense because we're looking at this like, why would it just randomly show up here and then be gone for another? Okay, let's just say they're correct. The next mention of Israel is at what? In the 9th century BCE, right?
I didn't know that. Yeah, that's crazy. So like way down.
And that's why I think the Jezreel makes the most sense. And here, like, let's just put our thinking caps on. I know you think I'm biased against Christianity. I know you. Fine, but let's just think about this for a second. We have archaeology of Jezreel from that time period. Jezreel existed. If you look at what the Merneptah, let me pull this up again. The Merneptah stele. Can you guys see this? Is this big enough to see? When we read the text, okay, let's read the text. It says, I'm using Wikipedia, but whatever. All right, the princes are prostrate, saying peace. All right, princes, right? Not one raises his head against among the 9 bows. 9 bows? What is he talking about? Desolation for Jenuhu. Hati is pacified. Plundered is Pa Canaan. Carried off is Ashkelon. These are all cities. Seized upon is Getzer. Yanoam is made not. Why would Israel randomly show up in a list of cities? Israel, like, wouldn't he say, Israel, the nation, I conquered them too? You know what I mean? Like, he's naming cities, so it makes more sense that this would be Jezreel's laid to waste. And the question I'm asking now myself is, I wonder if we have evidence of Jezreel being laid to waste by the Egyptians around this time. That would be the slam dunk. That would be game over. That would be not just we're done with this stele after that. If someone can show that. I don't know. I'm not an archaeologist, not an expert. I can't say that. But I do, maybe I'm biased, I do lean towards these 3 scholars down here who, let's see, Esafelt that's from 1965. So they were already coming at this early on. 1990, Margalith and Strahan in 1896. And then I think Israel Finkelstein's one of these people who think that this is not Israel either, but I don't know. Anyways, I just want to show you that. Like, let's put our logical thinking caps on for a second. If we know Jezreel existed in that time period, and it's in that area where all these other cities are, all these cities are being laid to waste. Jezreel is right there. Why wouldn't it be Jezreel? I could be wrong. Maybe Israel did somehow like magically just stay hidden for so long, and even Herodotus in the 6th century or 5th century BCE doesn't even know who they are. Let's just is it possible? Yeah, it's possible. It's possible. You can have a city state that no one knows about for 500 years. I guess. I don't know if it's likely though. I'm just being an amateur right now, But I'm just being real right now. This is what I think.
Oh, this is amateur hour, 100%. Like,
Yeah.
but because like we're not experts, but
Right.
this should, hopefully this makes someone mad enough that they do some real like a
Yeah,
historian comes
prove me
and
wrong.
cracks this.
Show me that
But
Israel was a thing back then.
but something I want to I know we're talking about pagan, pagan Christianity, pagan myths of the Bible, but something that like is so clear as day to me when you look at this like graph that I made, and this is part of the reason why I made it, is like you've got, think about how long 600 years is, but think about how long thousands of years is, and if you go up to
You can't wrap your head around it. You can't.
we have like the Kesh Temple hymn in 2600 BCE, like what like. Why are other faiths, other religions, other like ideas being written down way before the Bible? Like why? Why
Right.
is that the case? Like that seems like a weird way for God to kind of flex his omnipotence, you know what I mean? Like
It just doesn't. It's not logical. It does not make sense. The data shows otherwise. Period.
yeah, 100%. And there's this let me just quickly share something as well. Oh geez, I should have sent this to you. Let me just, can I send this to you,
Yeah.
Neil, and you post it?
Yeah. Do you
So
think
this
would be a good time to show the story about El?
I think well, show this image first because and
Okay.
it's just a quick point, but it's just a quick point. But this also just like for me, this was like a big part of why like that of my deconstruction process, looking at the Bible as like history. So if you show that image,
The one of the
well,
world?
actually, yeah, the one of the world, yeah.
Okay.
And there's like a little red dot.
Yeah.
So every event, like when you post up, every event in the entire Bible was in that red dot.
Right.
and you everything that you read,
Yeah.
everything that we're talking about, everything, and you look at like how small it is, and like why didn't Jesus come to China? Why didn't Jesus come? Why didn't Yahweh make his way to India?
Don't you know he sent the apostles to go across the world and send their message?
But I mean, and this is so, mind you, this is like 300,000 years where Homo sapiens have been just kicking. So it's like what, like is heaven just like the devil's just been like just waiting, waiting for like.
Oh, you want to know about the devil, right? Okay. Yeah, I got to bring this to the table because people need to know. So you're talking about, why are these stories showing up? Why is there a flood story with no Noah? Why is that?
Mhm.
Where's and by the way, El is the God of the Bible. Elohim, Yahweh. He's got these different titles. It's this one God thing that's going on. But El is the primary name for this God. El. That's what he shows up as the most. El or the Tetragrammaton. But it's the same. It's this one God thing. But let's go back. Where does this El show up? Who are the first people talking about El? Are they monotheists? Are they like Moses and Abraham? Are they dedicated to the law? Do they have a temple? Are they doing what are they doing? Oh, it turns out El and Yahweh are two different deities, and Yahweh is the son of El. Huh? I was like, okay. All right, then let's play this game for a second. Well, maybe El is the high God and Yahweh was like some messenger, and then maybe maybe later on they realize it's the same thing. But I found a text that really is interesting. And this is from Michael Coogan's Stories from Ancient Canaan. And speaking of the devil, the reason why I brought this up, you talk about the devil. You got to see. I'm just going to read this text to you guys. And if
I haven't, this is be fresh for me as well. Like
right.
this is me going, I don't know about this.
So El, actually, I'll read the first part that's not on the screen to lead up to this part.
We did a whole episode on El, not an El, but just to shout out my channel again. But we did a whole episode with Dan McClellan on the polytheism and monotheism in the Bible. And we talked about El, and that's the first time I heard about that. And like God had a wife.
Right. So El's having this drinking party. All right, he has his drinking party. I can't find this page right now. This is the second part, right? The first part, he has his drinking party, and then this is where it gets crazy. El drank wine until he was full, new wine until he was drunk. El went to his house. He reached his court. Thukamuna and Shunama helped him along. Then, this is the crazy part, Habayu confronted him. Lord of horns and the tail, That sounds like a devil. Like, it sounds like the devil, right? He smeared him with his crap and piss. El collapsed like a little corpse, like a little bitch. Like, where's he? I thought El's all powerful. What happened? The devil comes up, smears him with piss and crap, and El collapses like a corpse. He couldn't even handle the devil. And then El was like those who go down to the underworld. A knot and a Astarte. That's like Venus and Athena, basically. Then the lines are broken. Who knows what happened there? Then it says, Astarte in a knot. With them, they brought back. When they do the healing, he is revived. Whoa, El's a dying and rising god now. And then it says the scribal line separates the narrative about El's drunkenness from a prescription to cure a hangover. Sounds like some sort of cultic antidote thing that you see in some of these Bacchic
Yeah.
And then it says, one shall apply on his forehead dog hair and top of PQQ, I don't know what that means, and one should apply them together with fresh olive oil. It's like he's anointing them now.
Anointed, yeah.
Yeah, so you have El being shown up like a little, like he's nothing by the devil, gets murdered by the devil, dies, resurrects, and is anointed with olive oil. Huh.
Damn. When was this? Like when is this dated to?
This is cuneiform text, dude. This is before alphabets. This is cuneiform tablets. This is Ugaritic stuff. But this is from the same region of the world. This is from Canaan.
That's so.
This is the precursor to the Judaism.
I wonder if we need Dan McClellan to. We need.
I would love.
All right, let's see it.
That's a good idea. I should get him on to ask him about these texts right here. Like, what is going on here?
Yeah, I think so.
I did this with Dr. Mott, and we had that video has like 90,000 views or something like that. It was so good. He was talking about how there's an Adam and Eve rib story with what the hell is the god's name? I can't remember the god's name. It's really one of those weird Canaanite names. But it's like he takes the rib out of the backside and creates a female.
Right.
It's the Adam and Eve.
Yeah, it's just so interesting to see like where these how these ideas are developed. But one of the things that Josh, I'm actually doing a video for Patreon about this with Josh eventually when he has some free time, about how there's the concept that the primeval history, the first 9 chapters of Genesis, were actually like written as a polemic against Mesopotamian society. So it was like, it wasn't like they were plagiarizing in that they were just stealing ideas. That concept didn't exist back in those times. The same way, like you wouldn't say someone who uses a G chord is plagiarizing from whoever made a G chord.
Ninhursag. Ninhursag is the name. It's Enki and Ninhursag.
Oh, okay. Enki and
Ninhursag. Story that's just like Adam and Eve. It says, to make a long story short, the god Enki, out of curiosity, eats 8 plants in the paradise of Delim. Eve eating the forbidden fruit. Let's just put that out there. Which the goddess Ninhursag considers a mortal sin, so she causes 8 of Enki's body parts to suffer, including his rib. And he's on the brink of death. Enlil takes up Enki's cause and persuades Ninhursag to relent. And so various deities then come to heal each of Enki's body parts. The one who heals his rib is the goddess Ninti, whose name means Lady of the Rib, or Lady who makes live. You know, Eve is like life. That name and can be like life. You know what I mean? Which serves as a pun. Oh, there's a lot of puns in Sumerian. They love their puns.
They love their puns.
Yeah, and that's why I love this. These texts are so amazing. This is established. They were brilliant people in the ancient world. They were not dumb. And then it says, thus is established a possible parallel between Ninti and Eve, who was created from Adam's rib, Tsela in Hebrew, and whose name in Hebrew, Hawa, connotes life. By the way, there's the root for that word, Iwa, that means life in Greek. It looks like that's the root right there, Hawa. And then it says, the mother of all the living, Genesis 3:20. The pun doesn't work in Hebrew, since the words for rib and life differ, but I'm not sure the biblical writer knew about it, or if he did, cared. So let's see who wrote this. Arthur George wrote this If you want to look up more about this, look up Arthur George. So go ahead.
Oh,
It's
it's just
fascinating. It's fascinating, right?
it's just amazing. It is just amazing. Let me just quickly power through the last three things I've written down for the Epic of Gilgamesh and the Bible. So you've got the serpent and immortality, right? Which is both stories involve the serpent relating to the quest for immortality. In Genesis, the serpent tempts Eve to eat from the tree of knowledge, resulting in Adam and Eve expulsion from Eden and the loss of access to the tree of life and thus immortality. In Gilgamesh, a serpent steals the plant of rejuvenation, which offers immortality, causing Gilgamesh to lose his chance at eternal life. Number 4, the Great Flood. Both narratives recount a devastating flood sent by divine powers and a single righteous man who survives by building a great boat. In Genesis, Noah is warned by God to build an ark to save his family and pairs of each animal. In Gilgamesh, Apnapishtim is warned by the god Ea to build a boat and survive the flood. And then number 5, and which we've already read this, birds sent out after the flood. In both stories, the protagonist sends out birds to determine if the floodwaters have receded. Noah sends out a raven and a dove, while Upnapishtim sends out a dove, a swallow, and a raven. Remember that, crazy, right?
Now, yeah, so the Old Testament, like this is what I want. For me, it's like once you establish that the Old Testament, and this is not like I'm not like saying that these texts are horrible or bad. I think this
No, it's not diss.
strengthens how great they are, because you have these texts that these Hebrew scribes are putting together, and they're putting together all these ancient, divine, important stories, and they're repurposing them and they're passing them along, which is cool. Now, but once you establish that these stories are not just coming from one source, they're coming from all over the place, it breaks that shell of like this whole idea of like what is orthodox and what is canon and what is correct and what is incorrect and what is pagan. That word pagan, it's like all this stuff is influencing each other. There is no, this is Judaism, this is pagan, this is this is, it's all ancient stories, and they're all borrowing and lifting from each other.
Well, what do you think happened when Josh read that we started this by reading what Josh telling the story.
They were pissed because that's their world view.
They told him immediately when because they all raised their hand and said, that's the story of Noah. And then he said, no, actually, no, that was written 1,000 years, maybe 2,000 years since before the story of Noah. And they said, you're wrong. And then he actually argued with them.
Doesn't matter what you show them. You can show them. You can let them touch the stone tablet that's in cuneiform. You can have them touch it and show it to them. Nope, I don't believe you. The devil. You're the devil. You're the devil.
Yeah,
that's what'll happen. Justin Martyr had to say that the devil. All these other dying and rising gods, like and all these other messenger logos characters like Mercury. The devil did it. That's what he said. Oh, and speaking of parallels like that, I want to go. There's some super chats that I want to read. But first, I brought this text from Suetonius, and this is I love this text. Some people might know this, but if you don't, you're gonna love this.
I don't even know who that person is.
Great. Suetonius writes the story of Augustus, and the birth narrative. When you hear this birth narrative, just you'll know exactly why I brought this up. So
right, I'm gonna really enjoy it.
Yeah. Okay. So it says Julius Meritus. This is who he cites. Suetonius is living 100 years later. Julius Meritus lived in the time of Augustus, so he cites Julius Meritus, informs us that a few months before his birth, Augustus, there happened at Rome a prodigy by which, so like a star in the sky. Now, it doesn't say star in the sky, but like a star in the sky is a prodigy, right? So a prodigy by which has signified that nature was in travail with a king for the Roman people. So there's a prodigy saying...
Wait, is this... And this is prior? This is like, when was this?
This is 100 years before.
Okay, before Jesus, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So by which, well, not 100. Yeah. No, Augustus was born in 64 BCE. So okay. It's about 100 years. Yeah, about 100 years before the Gospels.
Yeah.
Okay. So Julius Meritus, remember I'm telling you, Julius Meritus is the citation. Like if Suetonius made this up, this could be later, but like, let's get real here. Are the Romans looking at Christian text in the first? No,
No.
they're not doing that. This. And by the way, this is a.
Have you seen the first picture of Jesus?
Let me finish this off, and then I'll explain this.
Yeah.
Okay? All right. So there's a prodigy in the sky of a king that's going to be born, and the Senate, in alarm, came to the resolution that no child should be born this year, but that amongst them whose wives were pregnant, to secure themselves a chance of that dignity, they took care of that decree and that the Senate should not be registered in the treasury. You even have a treasury. So you have just like Herod, who says, kill all the babies that are born this year because I don't want them to be a king. I'm the king. You have the Senate. And by the way, this is the Roman Republic days. There was no king. There was no emperor. The Senate was in charge. You have consuls that are elected every couple of years, or every year, I think. And so they don't want a king. They don't want if the Pontifex Maximus or whoever it is, the Salii, I think it's there's different Rextra Quorum, there's the augurs. The augurs are usually, we're looking at the sky. You also have the Haruspex, they check entrails. But whoever it was that checks the sky, probably the augurs, they're saying, dude, there's going to be a king born this year. That's what the oracle's saying. And they're like, no, that can't happen. So all these women that are pregnant that year have to hide their stomachs and hide because they don't want to register a baby. They're going to kill the baby. So you already have that parallel happens. And then it says, I find in the theological books of Asclepiades of Mendesian, I think we lost this book, that Attia, it's the mother of Augustus, upon attending at midnight a religious solemnity in honor of Apollo, when the rest of the matrons retired home, fell asleep on her couch in the temple, that a serpent immediately crept up to her and soon after withdrew. She, awakening, purified herself as usual after the embraces of her husband, and instantly there appeared upon her body a mark in the form of a serpent, which she never after could efface, and which obliged to her, during the subsequent parts of her life, the decline of the use of public baths. Augustus, it was added, was born in the 10th month after, and for that reason was thought to be the son of Apollo. So you have a son of a god being born against the will of the power, against the will of the Senate, who doesn't want there to be a king, and there's a prodigy in the sky. Anyways, the same Attia, before her delivery, dreamed that her bowels stretched to the stars and expanded to the whole circuit of heaven and earth. It's just like Mary having that vision, right? His father Octavius likewise dreamt that a sunbeam issued from his wife's womb. Upon the day he was born, the Senate being engaged in debate on the Catalans conspiracy, which is in the 60s BCE, and Octavius, in consequence, on his wife being in childbirth, coming late into the house, it was a well-known fact that Publius Nigitus, upon hearing the occasion of his coming to late and the hour of his wife's delivery, declared that the world had got a master. The master of the world has been born. And check this out. This is important too. Afterwards, when Octavius, marching with his army through the deserts of Thrace, consulted the oracle, the grove of Father Bacchus, with barbarous rites concerning his son, he received from the priest an answer to the same purpose, because when they lowered wine upon the altar, there burst out a prodigious flame that ascended above the roof of the temple and reached up to the heavens, a circumstance which never happened to anybody except for Alexander the Great. I'm going to tell you why this is important in a second. Upon his sacrificing at the same altars, the next night he dreamt that he saw his son under more human appearance, with the thunder and scepter in his hand and the insignia of Jupiter, Optimus Maximus. That's God Most High. That's what that means. Having on his head a radiant crown, mounted upon a chariot decked with laurel, and drawn by 6 pair of white milk horses. This is a Messiah being born. This is a Savior King being born.
Whoa.
And the reason why the Alexander thing's so important, and the reason why I wanted to bring this up, it's not just the birth of Augustus and the birth of Jesus that you see this. You see this in a lot of stories. The birth of Alexander the Great, his mother, Olympias, same thing. A serpent crawls up to her, gets her pregnant. He's the son of Ammon. He's the son of God too. There was another story about Mithridates the Sixth. When he was born, they said that he was from the line of both Alexander and Cyrus the Great. They're like, oh my God, this is the greatest thing ever. And they said, oh, there's a star in the sky signifying a king will be born. So you have all this is a common trope for when you're writing a story about a king or a savior or a hero or a demigod. This is just like this is standard. It's like think about this. Think about this. If you're writing a story of a superhero, Batman, Superman, whatever, Captain America, they're all different. They all have their things that are just that like Batman wears black and he has no one else looks like that, right? But they all have similar tropes. They all have two different like they have their like superhero and then they have their human side. They all have like a city that's like Gotham. They all have like the stories.
Yeah.
The stories have a similar similar like setting, or if that makes sense.
They all wear like an outfit. They all like hide their identity. They all like there's lots of like
exactly. So you know what I'm saying. But and that's like an ancient world.
I'm curious actually. So let's pretend if Gnostic conformant became a Christian apologist. Let's say you had a born again experience, and you become a Christian apologist. Like, or let's say like you read this or you knew this back when you were a Christian. Like, what do you think is the best way to defend the Bible from these kinds? Do you think it's like because there are a bunch of different angles, right? There's denying history. That's a big one where it actually the dates are wrong, blah blah blah, which they did that with with evolution as well. Or there's which I think is far more honest, which is like, well, they're all coming from an oral tradition, and the Epic of Gilgamesh and what you just read is from an oral tradition that predates the writings of both, and so how would you get around it?
Justin Martyr does this, and other people do this as well. You say Satan did it. You say Satan knows the gospel better than you do, so he's going to plant the stories out there to trick you.
Yeah,
and think about
ahead
this.
of time.
If you're a predeterminist, if you believe that everything's been planned by God beforehand, you have no problem with this. This is easy. That's no issue at all. You're not confused about that at all. Oh yeah, that makes sense. Satan did it. Then you move on with it.
Makes sense. Yeah. Yeah, interesting.
It sounds crazy to someone who's not in that mindset.
I've never been a predeterminist.
You're like, that's just a cop out. But like the people, and even not like full blown Calvinists, even some people who just think God like planned everything and like you have free will. Even those people will find this to be an easy out, and they think it makes sense because look, Satan's been there from the beginning. He knows all this stuff. Why wouldn't he be plotting to change your mind on this? That's where your mind's going to go.
Yeah, exactly. There are ways to.
So Eusebius, and this is not just Eusebius, and then the Nicene preacher, who was a 2nd century Christian, thought that these were prophecies for Jesus. So I'll give you. Let me just show you something real quick.
Oh, like
this is the hymn to Attis. The Nicene preacher in the 2nd century was using this hymn to Attis. Now, we know this from Hippolytus and Justin Martyr that talk about this. They say there's a guy named the Nicene preacher. He lived in Anatolia. He was in Phrygia, whatever, Cappadocia, somewhere over there in modern-day Turkey. And he had a big following. He would say that Jesus is basically that you guys called him Osiris. You guys called him Adonis. You guys called him Attis. You guys called him the player of the pipes, the corpse god. See that? Unfruitful, the goat herd. But really, he said, it's all Jesus. So people like the Nicene preacher, they just roll with the punches and say, that's probably just a prophecy for Jesus. And that's not just, and so you might say that's a heretic. Okay, it's a heretic. You're right, he's a heretic. He wasn't a heretic in his time, but later on he's called a heretic. Eusebius isn't a heretic. You know what Eusebius said? If you have, I think I have it here somewhere. I don't know. Eusebius's text called The Preparation for the Gospel. Evangelion Preparatio. It's in Latin. And Greek, sorry. Or I don't know, whatever. I don't know, it's probably both. But he talks about this stuff. He mentions all these little myths like Saturn sacrificing his only son. And then Saturn also circumcises himself and makes that a custom among the Phoenicians, just like Abraham. You have two things that are happening. He's sacrificing his only.
Wait, I haven't heard that. Tell
Didn't know
us about
this?
that.
Let me,
No.
let me see if I can find it. Let me see if I can find it.
Fucking Neil and his giant stack of scholarly books, eh?
I don't know if I have.
You've always got like some like ancient scroll just off camera left.
Oh, you know what? I can find it for you. So the story is. All right. Just give me 1 second. Can you entertain the people for a couple
I
seconds?
can actually. I do want to talk. Share share this tab.
Okay.
I'm gonna read out this.
I will be right back, and I'm going to bring this because this is good stuff, and I'll continue what I'm saying. I'll be right back.
Cool. So I wonder if I can share this tab. Oh, cool. So you see how welcome to the class with Deep Drinks. Dave McDonald from Deep Drinks. So you got this 200-year gap here between Proverbs and the instructions of instructions of I don't know. Is that Ammon Ammon Mope. Oh my gosh. I'm not very good at pronunciation, but you got this 200-year gap at best. At best, if you believe that Proverbs is written by King Solomon. But then you've got, when you actually look at what the I'm just going to call them the instructions. You look at what the instructions say. They look, and this is Wikipedia, and I pulled it up because everyone can go click on it and find the sources. But a number of passages of instructions of the instructions have been compared with the book of Proverbs, including incline thine ear and hear the words of the wise, and apply thine heart to my doctrine. For it is pleasing if thou kept them in thy belly, and they may establish, and that they may be established together upon thy lips. And then this is the Ananope one. Give thine. I know I'm gonna look back at this and hate the way I pronounce it because I'll be corrected. Give thine ear and hear what I say, and apply the heart to apprehend it. It is good for thee to place them in thine heart. Let them rest in the casket of thy belly, and they may act as a peg upon thy tongue. And this is like all through it. Rob not the poor, for he is poor, neither oppress or crush the lowly in the gate. Beware of robbing the poor, oppressing the afflicted, and oppressing the afflicted. So you have like this these clear like links. But the thing is, this wasn't, Proverbs wasn't. I guess if you take a fundamentalist perspective of like the Bible, it's all just. Oh, and I didn't even share my tab. Oh my gosh. Here are the other ones. Proverbs. This is oh my gosh. I always do this on my channel. Come to my channel, but you can see me screw up. It's just as good. But so you got Proverbs, and you see the other chapters. They're just exactly the same. You've got a whole list here. But it doesn't necessarily mean that if you take a fundamental perspective of the Bible, you've got this perspective that that the Bible is inherent, it's perfect, it's inspired by God. It's like it's from God. But if you take like a more historical approach, it makes sense for like Proverbs to be like these stories, these ideas, these sayings. Like if I was to say to you, the car was flying down the street, we know that we don't actually mean a car was literally flying, but we know that in this current in our current culture, that would mean that where the car is going very fast down the street. So these are the same. Like, and I don't know why ancient texts would be any different. We have the same. We have quotes from that and stories that are developed in one nation and taken to another nation and put into their text. So you've got, if you see a man in his work before kings he will stand, before cravens he will not stand. A scribe who is skillful in business hindreth worthy to be a courtier. Like you can just look through this list and just see the similarities.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So this is from a Christian. I don't know if you want to call him a church father, but he's early. This is from the time of Constantine. He wrote the church histories. Let me just show this real quick. Eusebius, Preparation for the Gospel. And here's what it says about all this stuff, okay? It says, it was a custom in the ancients, in great crisis of danger for the rulers of a city or nation, in order to avert common ruin, common ruin, to give up the most beloved of their children for a sacrifice as a ransom to the avenging daemons. And those who were thus given up were sacrificed with mystic rites. Kronos, who the Phoenicians call El, or Elus, who was a king of the country and subsequently, after his decease, was deified as the star Saturn, had by a nymph of the country named Anobret, an only begotten son, whom on this account they called Yedud, the only begotten son being called among the Phoenicians. And when very dangers from war beset, he arrayed his son in royal apparel and prepared an altar and sacrificed him. And then it says that because he sacrifices his father first, or not sacrifice, he emasculates his father Aranos, and then he circumcises himself and makes it a custom among the Phoenicians from that day forward that every male born has to circumcise themselves. This is not the Old Testament. This is a Phoenician story. So how does Eusebius come around this? This is prophecy for Christ. This is leading up to this is just like, this is scripture, he says. This is scripture that we should take. Oh, I think I muted you by accident.
Oh, just like Isaiah 53, it's a prophecy for Christ, isn't it, Neil?
And like, you know what's interesting? I wonder why more Christians don't do that.
Actually, yeah, because if you're gonna take, so that, just so everyone is aware, that was a joke.
Instead of saying it's the devil, and then looking like
it was a prophecy,
say it's a prophecy.
Actually, yeah, because so Neil and I did a full episode on Isaiah 53 on my channel, but the so that was kind of like a wink wink nudge. But you're right, Neil. It's like why don't they just look at other scripture, even that this could work all around the world. This would actually solve that problem with the little circle, right? Like other nations, like you could look into like text from India, text from from all around the world, and then read into it Jesus. You could. I wonder if there's a book that's done that, like where someone's tried to find Jesus in everything. Like you see Jesus in toast, and oil stains on the road and stuff. People see Jesus, but I wonder if someone's done that with like all the ancient texts, like ancient Roman, ancient Greek. It would be interesting.
I wonder why. Yeah. So yeah, I think I'm trying to find the circumcision one. There's a lot of stuff here. But yeah, if you want to find it, it's in here. It's in Eusebius. You have a circumcision and you have a sacrificing the only son thing, and it's the story of Saturn. And by the way, Saturn's day is the Sabbath. So there's a lot of connections going on there, and
okay,
you can see how and it's not to say that the Judaism is borrowing from this story, but what's more likely is that both of these stories are coming from a common source.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? Because it's hard to prove that this story right here, it's Saturn, all these new hemerizations happening, that this story predates the Genesis. I don't know if that's the case, but I do think that that this story that I just read is coming from a common source of these two texts. That's what I think. Thanks.
It's you have to think about like the things that we take for granted today, and like how like we got like we said, the superheroes, they all wear they might have a cape, they have masks, they hide their identity, they wear colorful clothes. Like all these things are just written into what we know as superheroes. But imagine if we didn't have writing, that would just be like a cultural norm. So someone writes a story about a superhero, you've got a cape.
That's Yahweh, and this is El.
That's Yahweh. Yeah. That's El. So Yahweh. So El is in a wheelchair.
Oh wait, maybe it's the other way around. Whatever. It's one. I think this is El and this is Yahweh. It doesn't. They're both there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Basically, whichever one it is, El or Yahweh. It could be both of them could be Yahweh, both of them could be El, or could be one or the other. But it is an earlier form of the God of the Hebrew Bible. It is an earlier variation of that.
Something Francesca Stavrakopoulou says in her book. Let me just find the quote really quickly. She says something that is amazing, I think. So she says, it is well known after 6 days. after 6 days of speaking the heavens and the earth into existence, Yahweh is said to have rested from all the work he had done on the seventh day. Jewish and Christian theologians, this is the part that's important. And should I share my? I'll share my screen so people can enjoy the reading experience.
Sure.
So this is a video I put together, but I'm quoting from the book. Um, Christian and Jewish theologians are so accustomed to imagining God as a deity unfettered by physical limitations that the idea of a divine rest tends to be reverently cast as a day of reflection and contemplation. But the Bible itself offers a more pragmatic reason for God's day of rest. He was running out of puff. As a deity himself tells Moses in the book of Exodus, in the 6th day Yahweh made the heavens and the earth, and on the 7th day he rested and caught his breath. So, like, you see here, like, the Hebrew Bible and the Hebrew God initially was a physical deity, and this is something that kind of blew me away. Like like we have this perspective talking about the superheroes again. We have this perspective of God being this like unfettered, strong, omnipresent, non-physical being. Where the Hebrew Bible actually has God as this, like, starts off like you were saying, starts off with El, moves into, is maybe adopted into Adonai or Yahweh, and it's like this. You can see it developing, and even in the Garden of Eden, Adam is walking. You're muted. Adam is walking with
No, I'm not. I was looking for.
Okay.
I thought I had it around me somewhere. It's the Mesopotamian myths, but they have the 7 tablets of creation, and it's interesting that in some of the tablets, like tablet, I'm just throwing. I wish I had it in front of me right now, but you can look this up. In some of the tablets, like tablet 3, matches up with some of the stuff that happens in day 3. Like Adam and Eve are created. Was it day 4 or something? And then it's like on the tablet 4, he created whatever. And then the seventh tablet, the gods all rest. So I'm like thinking there might be some with these 7 tablets of creation, might have something to do with the 7 days of creation in the Bible.
Interesting.
I wish I had it in front of me. I was just talking about this with somebody the other day. Maybe I could find it in here. Go ahead though.
Oh, that's all I have. All I was kind of pointing out is like the idea, like, God has developed through history. So the idea of God has developed. The stories written about God, the stories of Noah, were taken from other. But it's not a plagiarism thing. It's not like stealing. It's literally this development of ideas. And what I was saying before about like the polemic, like Dr. Josh talks about a theory that's a theory in scholarship, which is that the primeval history, the first 9 chapters of Genesis, are a polemic against Mesopotamian society. Like it's an attack. So the Epic of Gilgamesh, I think it is, or it's not the Enuma Elish. I think it's the Epic of Gilgamesh. And once again, we're doing a video on this, so I'm not 100% fresh. But it's like the story of the Epic of Gilgamesh is like, towards Mesopotamian civilization. So, you've got this like, Enkidu and like in the forest, and the story kind of progresses from being in the forest and wild and crazy and like, and then drinking beer, and goes all the way up to like this perfect Mesopotamian society. And then you look at the story of Genesis, and it's a similar thing with Noah's flood and stuff, but it's about God being upset with society, and like the Tower of Babel, and God, and society creating I've always wondered by that. Why would God be angry at people building a tower, especially when it was smaller than the towers that we have today, and splitting up the languages and casting everyone out? Well, it makes sense if you look at Genesis as a polemic, like a strong attack against the story of the Epic of Gilgamesh. It's like, this is our story. God, our God, Yahweh, Adonai, El, our God is actually angry at Mesopotamian society, and that's what it's kind of happening here. And you look, Abraham, like, what does Abraham do? Abraham like spends the rest of his days going around in tents. He wants nothing to do. Sodom and Gomorrah is destroyed. He wants nothing to do with the towns. They're evil, they're corrupt. Tower of Babel is corrupt. Society is corrupt. So you look at Genesis and you go, okay, Genesis makes a whole lot more sense there, where it's like, if you have the context of the Epic of Gilgamesh, you have the context of Mesopotamian society at the time, Assyriology, it makes sense, because you're like, okay, so it's not literal history, it's a story that's like, we're taking the story. It's like it's like when Tupac wrote the the diss song against some Biggie, and he used the they had that get money or
Yeah, yeah,
whatever,
yeah,
and
yeah,
then Tupac changed to take money,
yeah,
and it was
yeah.
like
Polemic,
first off,
right?
fuck you bitch in the quick, yeah, hit him up, right?
That's a classic polemic right there. Yeah,
Yeah, as a polemic, it's like taking something and then like turning it around on them, and so that's what the Hebrews were doing there. It's like, this is our story. Our God's the real God. Our God is like angry with Mesopotamian society, and that's the video that one day we'll be producing for Deep Drinks. I mean, Dr. Josh has like a million kids and a million things he's doing, so we'll get him one day. But yeah.
So yeah, I couldn't find the 7 tablets of creation thing. But anyways, that's I can make a video on that. That would be a good video topic. It doesn't match up perfectly, but there are some interesting things about the succession of what's happening on each tablet. Like what new thing is being created on these tablets, and then you're like, oh, that thing is also being created on that same day in the Bible. Like, I wonder if they're both creation stories. They have the 7 going on. So, and then the 7th day, sure enough, the 7th tablet, the gods all rest. So I'll look into that. I'm gonna find that. Maybe I'll make a video on that. That's actually a good idea. But
I just wanted to quickly shout out, like, there's so many people here that I see in my chat all the time, and I just like, it's great to see you guys here. Constellation Pegasus, Carrie Ann, I see you guys all the time. Pragmatic Crystal, I'm just going through. Theophilus 09, I see you sometimes. That's awesome. Like, you got a good crew over here. I mean, most of them probably came to me from you, so
for sure.
Sorry if I missed anyone. I'm just having a look.
Everybody's.
Yeah.
Winnie Vantison says, "What about purgatory?" We didn't even get into New Testament stuff, but what about purgatory? Is that in the Bible or
Caterpillar? Yeah.
Or even anything Greek? So obviously we're both not. This is amateur hour, but we're just having fun. I'll give you my thoughts on this, right? So there's a text that's not related to that's credited to Josephus, but scholars think it's probably not Josephus. I have it here. I have it right here. All right, so check this out, right? There's a text in here called "On the Dissertation of Hades." It's in the back of Josephus' book. You go to the back of the Josephus book, there's a book called "The Dissertation of Hades." And it's interesting because in the Gospels, you hear about the story of the rich man and the poor person that go to hell. Remember that? What is that story called?
Yeah.
And Lazarus, right?
Lazarus, right? Yeah.
Let me pull this up real quick. This is gonna be, you're gonna love this. All right, so I have rich man and Lazarus here. Hold on. And I actually think this has to do with purgatory, in my opinion. I could be wrong. All right. So, all right, rich man and Lazarus. There's a rich man who dressed in purple and fine linen and lived in luxury every day. And at his gate was laid a beggar named Lazarus, covered with sores, longing to eat what fell on the rich man's table. Then the time came when the beggar died, and the angels carried him to Abraham's side. I hate that translation because it should say Abraham's bosom.
And what's the difference between what's Abraham's bosom? I've never understood that. Yeah,
I'm going to show you why right now. The rich man died and was buried. In Hades, he was in torment. He looked up and saw Abraham far away. Lazarus was by his side. So they're both in the same place. They both can see each other. It's like they're in the same place. Okay, I just wanted to show that. There's a text called "On the Discourse to Hades." It's in the back of the Josephus book. The scholars think it's not really Josephus that wrote this. It might have been Hippolytus. But anyways, he mentions this bosom of Abraham. So I'm just going to read this off to you. In this region, there is a certain place set apart as the lake of unquenchable fire, whereinto we suppose no one has hitherto been cast, but it is prepared for a day aforementioned. I'm just going to aforementioned by God, in which one righteous sentence shall be deservedly be passed upon all men. Okay. God himself shall be judge to his everlasting punishment as having causes of defilement, while the just shall obtain an incorruptible and never fading kingdom. These are now indeed confined in Hades, but not in the same place wherein unjust are confined. For there is one descent in this region, at whose gate we believe there stands an archangel with a host, which gate, when those pass through, are conducted down by the angels appointed over souls. They do not go the same way, but they are just guided to the right hand and are led with hymns sung by the angels appointed over to that place, to a region of light, in which the just are dwelt from the beginning of the world, not constrained by necessity, but ever enjoying the prospect of good things. Good things. I'm sorry. I'm looking to see if I have the right spot. But ever enjoying the prospect of good things, and rejoice in the expectation of those new enjoyments which will be peculiar to every one of them, and esteeming those but beyond what we have here, with whom there is no place of toil, no burning heat, no piercing cold, nor are there any briars there, but the countenance of the fathers of the just, which they see, always smiles upon them, while they wait for the rest and eternal new life in heaven. They're not in heaven yet. They're waiting for heaven, which is to succeed this region. This place we call, it's bosom of Abraham. So the bosom of Abraham is an actual place. And when sometimes you read that text in Luke and you're like, oh, is he actually like, is he like hanging right next to, is he like on top of Abraham, like on his lap? No, it's not what that means. It's a title of a place. It's the name of a region called the bosom of Abraham. So now the purgatory thing, I think it's possible that Christian theologians in the 2nd and 3rd century and 4th century are drawing upon this sort of like waiting room area and calling it purgatory, because you have a place where on one side all the bad people go, on the one side all the good, but they're all in the same place. They can see each other. So I think that's where you get purgatory from.
I think I'm muted, or I'm unmuted now.
You're good. You're good.
Oh, cool. There's I just wanted to quickly mention, I haven't read it for a while, but this book here, Heaven and Hell: The History of the Afterlife. There's a chapter, Death in the Iliad and the Odyssey, there's a chapter called Life and Death Before There Was Life After Death. And it's a really good chapter, but it talks about how, like, essentially, like, we have the way death in the Iliad and the Odyssey is treated, and then, you know, that was written beforehand, and you can see, like, again, you can see these ideas develop.
That's awesome. What is it called?
A good book. It's called Heaven and Hell by Bart de Ehrman. It's a really good book.
Oh yeah, that's per. And speaking of that, I have something to add to what he says about this. I think there's some Roman stuff going on here. I'm just going to play a clip from one of my shorts on my shorts channel, and this is what I think happened with. So the idea of heaven being up and hell being down. Think about this for a second. Where does that come from? You don't see that in the Old Testament. So where is it coming? So here's one of my possible.
You don't even see hell in the Old Testament or heaven.
I'm throwing now. This what I'm about to show you is my own personal ideas that I'm not getting this. This is not like peer-reviewed stuff.
Amateur hour. Woo!
Yeah, I'm just giving you. I'm throwing out a possibility here, and I want to hear what you guys think in the comments. Here's what I think. Can you hear that? So in Philo, we have this Platonic idea of the monad having a twofold nature with a spirit to mediate between the two. This, to me, is what later is adopted as Trinitarian theology. It's after this part. This is just leading up to it. Among Roman inscriptions from Nicopolis, Sabbatios is generally equated with Jove and mentioned alongside Mercury. Mercury is called the angel and the messenger and the logos, which is also talked about in Philo's work as well. Which brings us to the next idea, is that if this really is a monotheistic tradition that evolved from the ancient rites of polytheism, then what happens to all the other lesser gods? I think that it's quite possible that these lesser gods become angels and demons. As in, we know for sure that Mercury, Athena, Nike, as well as others like Diana, are titled as angelos, angels, messengers. And the other lesser deities, sometimes called daemons. That term daemon, which didn't necessarily mean evil deity. Certainly became that way. As in Roman religion, there's the idea of lairs, which are spirits of the mortals who passed away. But there's also what's called the genius. And these are equivalent to what is now guardian angels.
Good question. I have no idea.
In ancient Roman religion, manes, manes, are the chthonic deities.
Look at this.
Sometimes represent the deceased loved ones. Here we have a 3rd century Christian tombstone that stands dis manibus, the spirits of the dead. So the same language is still being thrown around in these early Christian texts.
This is the part that I wanted to show. This is the part
Apuleius
right here.
says, indeed, that the souls of men are daemons, and that men become lairs if they are good, lemures or larvae if they are bad,
Good and bad.
and manes if it is uncertain whether they deserve well or ill. He also states that the blessed are called daemones because they are good souls, that is to say, good daemons, conforming his opinion that the souls of men are daemons. Could it be that these are the origins of people who go to heaven, people who go to hell, and people who go to purgatory?
Just asking
In
questions.
fact, people who end up as lemures, the wicked ones, are belong to a category that was called D and Theory, those who dwell below.
Dante talks.
These are the people who are going to the
Dante's Inferno.
bad part of Hades, who have eternal damnation, if you will.
Damn.
Now he talks about the up and down
In
thing.
Horace,
I do.
a 1st century BC writer, you can see these ideas are already reflected in their common thought, where in his Ode to Mercury, he says, I call upon you, Mercury. You were the master
Look at that.
who
It's a
taught your
bottomless
pupil
pit in the
Amphion
underworld.
to move
Sounds like
stones
hell.
by singing, and upon you, tortoise so adept, to make 7-string sound. Let Lydie hear their crime, and also of its famous punishment, the vat of water, forever emptying through a leaking bottom, and the fate that awaits sinners in the underworld. So you have right there the imagery of a bottomless pit that is for sinners. When Julius Caesar died, it was said that Venus came down from the heavens and brought his body up with her.
Up.
The idea of the good rising upwards and the bad going down was part of Roman religion during the Augustan age. Augustus, on his death, the same thing happened. People said they saw Augustus rise up out of his grave and go up into the sky. And then, as well, for Claudius, a similar story occurs in which Claudius is seen flying up into the sky. As a result of this, it became a common thing that people wanted to go up into heaven instead of going down into Hades, which was the common norm for everybody.
See?
By the time you get to the 3rd century, it's pretty much
norm.
universal that heaven is up and hell is down.
Interesting.
So I'm just throwing out, like, I could, there could be other things leading up to this. There could be stuff in the Eastern world that I'm not aware of, Persian stuff. I don't know, but
It's also
look at the Roman stuff, and it's like the good. Look, Julius Caesar rose up into heaven. Oh, Augustus rose up into heaven. Claudius rose up into heaven, and like all of a sudden, you notice that it's just the norm that everyone wants to go up. No one wants going down is hell, going up is heaven.
But think about this too. I don't know any Christian who believes going up is heaven now, because we have like information about space and stuff. I don't know any Christian who believes that hell is literally in the earth.
They'll say up in heaven and down in hell.
Yeah, but so what I'm saying is like
it's not literally that. It's that mindset still. You can still see where it comes from.
Yeah. What I'm saying is it's developed again. So it's like now we've got more information. It's like, okay, well, heaven is like a spiritual place. Because like I have this idea, like this story that I always tell. It's like if Jesus, because it says in the Gospels that Jesus ascended into heaven, right? Like he just like levitated up into heaven. Well, if he was to do that at like a rate that people could see him, he couldn't be traveling at the speed of light. And unless he sped up, or disappeared and went to heaven, he's still going. Because we can see 13.8 billion light years away, which means that unless he was traveling at the speed of light, it would still take 13.8 billion years. So
That's why,
like,
but
so he's still out there.
French,
Jesus isn't coming back because he's not there yet. He hasn't even got there to be able to come back yet.
That's that Francesca Stravakopoulos citation that you pulled out. How it talks about how the idea that Christian, people of the Judeo-Christian mindset think that their God is outside space and time and he doesn't have any flesh and can't be mortal. Like, that's all post Plato. That's all Hellenistic influenced ideas of a monad being outside of space and time. That is not present before the Hellenistic time period. Before the Hellenistic time period, you had a god and you had an altar for this god, and this god was there. He was present, and he had a body. He had a phallus. The phallus was in the temple. All that stuff.
Yeah, as big as a temple. And you can even see this develop. You can even see how ideas develop in the Bible. Like, the Old Testament doesn't have a heaven, doesn't have a hell, but then you move up through, and God is contained within a tent, and then God is contained within a temple, and then Jesus comes along, and it's like God is spread throughout the whole earth. Like, with the Holy Spirit, you can see these ideas kind of develop as like society gets more complex, as like people start going, how could God be in a tent? Like, well, maybe he's in a temple now. Let's build a temple for him. Like, you can just see it's so clear as day to me when you look back at comparative literature and comparative like religions, and you can just see in history, you can see how these things just kind of. I think religion is beautiful, amazing, and it's a really good way to organize society. Until we got the internet, or even until the Enlightenment, it's like it works really well for organizing society.
It works really well.
It doesn't mean it's true.
But I want to add to that. It works really well if you let people have the freedom to express their own religious ideas and not have to have an outside central theocratic dogma make you feel like religion should be like art and music and film. You should have to be able to express your own religious ideas however you see it. That's how you get that religious state of ecstasy, is when you put yourself in that state, when you have to believe it for it to work. And if someone's telling you something that you don't believe, it's not going to work. You're like, what is it? Why are you telling me that I have to put water on my face? I don't think that you should be able to search the ancients or whatever, even if not, forget the ancients, you should be able to do whatever you want and express your own belief about this, whatever reality this is. Because people do have ideas people have mindsets that are more mystical than others sometimes. And that's just how people are. It's just the nature of how people are. People think differently. So some people think that, there's a creator and they want to have like access to this thing, and it gives them purpose. They lose their loved ones. They want to have this idea that they're going to see their loved ones again. That's all valid idea. That's all. You can't knock someone for that. But with the dogma stuff, the idea that the church has to tell you how to do it, you have to give us you have to give us some payment if you want your loved one to go to heaven. Give us 500 pieces of silver, and we'll make sure it happens for you. That's all ludicrous. Yeah, and that's what leads to oppression of people who aren't like you. You have a certain way of how everybody should act like this. Men should do this, and women should do this. And you should go to church. You should join the army. You should be a housewife. And everyone has to play these fake roles and pretend that we are someone that we're not. You can't actually play how you are.
Even think about this. Like, let's put yourself into the Christian mindset for a second, like a Christian mindset. Where in the Bible does it state that you are to write down all these stories 50 years after the fact and then use them to argue about abortion rights and LGBT issues like 2,000 years later? It doesn't say it anywhere. In fact, I made the argument to Megan Lewis when she was on Deep Drinks. I said, because she's a Christian, and I said, you could even make the argument that the devil did it. Because God gave the Holy Spirit, and the Holy Spirit was supposed to be the witness, right? The Holy Spirit, you're not supposed to use literature and stories. Like, you're supposed to use the Holy Spirit. Maybe the devil canonized the Bible. Maybe that was all part of the devil's plan to confuse the world, right? But then again, I'm using the Bible and my understanding of the devil and the Holy Spirit and stuff to justify my worldview. So it's kind of circular. But it's like you could even make an argument. You could make an argument there that well, you shouldn't even be it's an argument against the inerrancy of scripture. It's an argument against the using the Bible to argue about said things. And that's the problem, I think, with religion is you can have, I think, like I said, I think religion's beautiful, amazing. I just don't think it's true. And that's the big difference. In a true in a objective sense. It's true in that like people feel a certain way.
Let me oppose that for a second. Because
Yep.
when you say true, do you mean like events factually didn't happen in the scripture, or do you mean because somebody who's practicing a religion can get results from it and feel a certain way from it, and that it's affecting their lives, and you tell them it isn't true, they'll say, "What do you mean it's not true? I just felt it." How do you say they're not? That's not. How do you say they're? What do you say they're liars or something? They're not like it's for some people it's a way of life to create feeling and emotion, and it's not, not about if a fact happened, if an event happened in history, or yes or no. It's the dumbest thing ever. Do you believe this happened in the year 33? If you don't, you're doomed. That's so dumb. It's so childish. But some people practice religion to get a spiritual like results from it. And how do you say it's not true? You can't.
Well, I'll tell you how I do it. So I was a Pentecostal youth pastor, and I had a lot of experiences. I felt warm sensations. I remember breaking down in tears. I saw my friends pass out. I saw people have convulsions. I would speak in tongues. Like, all that kind of stuff. I don't deny those experiences. Those experiences were true. I deny the conclusion that it was the power of God.
Sure.
Same with other religions. I look at people who practice Shinto and have experiences, or people who practice Buddhism or Hinduism, or who's that? John Lennon? Was it John Lennon? It was one of the Beatles. He said that he goes, "I've got no use for a Christian God because you can't talk to him," and he would pray and chant the mantras of Krishna until Krishna appeared to him. He said,
that's George Harrison.
George Harrison, and he said you could touch, feel him. He was there. You had a relationship with Krishna or one of the Krishna, yeah. And it's like, I don't deny his experience. No way. Like, I'm not going to deny that, but I deny his conclusions. I don't think it was actually Krishna.
You're saying that there's parts of the brain, there's endorphins, and there's chemicals in the brain that release these feelings of euphoria, and that's what you're pointing at. Now,
I don't even know what it is. I'm happy to go like, I don't know what it is.
I'm just reiterating. I'm just like understanding. And so I can't say you're wrong about that either. But the person who's having that experience, to them, it's just, okay, you can call it however you want to call it. I'm still going to do it. Right? And what are you going to do? Tell them no? Like, that's like, and that's
imagine like going up to Van Gogh and being like, "Look, buddy, the sky doesn't look like that. That's not a true representation." Like, it's the different parts of the brain. Like, it's creativity, it's analytics, it's
I agree with what you're saying, 100%. Here's a good question from Yaku. Thank you for the super chat. Would you consider Canaanite pagan? And I before you even say anything, I just want to cite James Apperson in the chat. I'd say the Canaanites are the true orthodoxy, and the biblical
James is awesome.
Heretical pagans. I'm going with that.
I see James over in Deep Drinks all the time too. Thanks. It's great to see you here, James.
Any thoughts on that or no?
So I don't know too much about this, although I do know that a lot of people, is it true that the current consensus is that Hebrews were just a tribe of Canaanites? Is that right? It's like they come from the Canaanite region.
There's the Hebrews. There's this idea that there could be called Habaru, which is basically it's an Egyptian word that means migrants, or migrant people. And Egypt controlled Canaan, so a lot of migrants from the Hittite area, the Greeks, a lot of from Babylon, they would be dwelling in those lands. And it's possible that's where you get Hebrews from.
Interesting.
But they are Semitic Canaanite people. They're the same. That's who they are. They are those people. They live there.
I mean? I just think we've all been ripping off Australis Africa. Damn it, I forgot the name. I was trying to make a joke about our first evolutionary. Who's Lucy? What's Lucy?
That's the skull. The skull. It's found in Ethiopia.
Yeah, but what's the
Do you know that,
Australopithecus, yeah. We've all just been ripping off. Australopithecus was the true first religion,
yeah,
the true first
that's
Hebrews.
Adam and Eve. That's Adam and Eve.
Yeah. I mean, how long ago was that? That was a long 3.2 million
Yeah,
years.
millions of years ago.
Yeah, damn, that's so cool.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I love it.
The first Homo sapiens. This has now turned into me talking about evolution, but the first Homo sapiens are like what, like 300,000 years or something.
Probably, I don't know.
It's wild. Have you read the book? You know how this is something just a random aside. You know how like you think like monkey, like this is what I was taught in church. This is what the world believes. Monkey gave birth to human. There's actually like and then like, oh, they found Lucy, which they pretend to be in between. There is so many. There's like just so many intermediate steps. We got all the way from like ape all the way.
When they used to say in my church, there are no transitionary fossils. What? Yeah, there is.
And
just look it up. Well, look them up. They're all there's a whole bunch of them. And
this.
But they define it as they have their own way of defining it as like you can't show a humanoid giving birth to a brand new humanoid. Like why would that? That's not even what evolution is. It's a slow process. You have micro and macro evolution. They don't realize there's two different things. And then you have speciation.
Do you remember when you first like learned about evolution properly, and you're like, damn, like you're talking about spirituality and stuff.
A fish gave birth to a chicken. I can't believe it. Right? Like
yeah. When I first like for me, when I first kind of learned about the size of like the universe and evolution and like how big it is and how vast and how connected we all are, that was almost like a spiritual experience for me. Oh, the timeline, yes. I should actually post it if I finish it. I want to get it like when I say peer reviewed, I mean getting my scholarly buddies to check over it. But I want to get my scholarly buddies to check over it, and I want to put some more stuff in there. Like this is when the Jericho thing happened. This is when Noah's flood happened, and this is when it says that happened, and this is when it was written down, and this is when it was because I think seeing it in the graph like that, it makes it a lot easier for me to understand. That's why I was up till 1 a.m. working on it the other night.
You made that. You made that yourself, right?
Yeah. I totally copied all the styling, the color, and everything from usefulchats.org. But he does amazing. Yeah, great stuff. But I was like, damn, I like his style, so I'm gonna.
Constellation Pagan says, "Thank you for the super chat."
Same.
I'm a big fan of timelines, the ultimate reference tool for me. Timelines are great. Actually, I have a really cool timeline over here somewhere. Where did I put it? But there it is. You gotta check this out. I love this.
You've been going. Constellation Pegasus has been going nuts with the super chats. Thank you. You see, every time you give a tithe to Gnostic Informant, you actually serve an extra few years in the good part of the afterlife. So just remember that.
I got this on Amazon for like $10, and it's all of Roman history, all the big events. From let's see, it starts off the Etruscans in 900 BCE, and then it ends. It ends in 565 BCE with the Ottomans fighting against the Byzantines.
Have you seen Game of Thrones?
Yeah, of course.
So is it Sam? Which one's the chunky dude?
Sam, yeah.
People say it looks like me. It's so I was like, I found your doppelganger in this, in a photo of him. I was like, oh, thanks. But you know how he goes to that like season 7 or something? He goes to that library and he's just poring over scrolls. That's what I imagine that room that you're in is currently like. You're there, just like
turning into that. I'm trying to. I realized something recently that this time that we're in right now, any amateur has access to stuff that 50 years ago no one had access. They didn't have Oxford translations in English for $9.99 on Amazon that they could just buy and have sent to their house in 2 days. They had to go to libraries. They had to find. They didn't. So we have so much resources right now that you and I can become, not experts, but like we can become very educated in these areas enough to hold our own in these conversations.
Well,
so we're very fortunate in that sense.
It's better than that. It's better than that, Neil. Think about this, right? Every king, think about this, every king, every queen, every famous person in history, you and I live a much better. I would I would not want to go back.
I can learn Greek online with somebody who lives 100 miles away.
Yeah. Well, I'm on the other side of the world. I'm 16 hours away from you.
Years ago, you would have to find somebody in your city who teaches Greek and has time to teach you.
Can you imagine though?
Like, and they might not be that good. They might be bad.
Yeah. You're living in the time where like your life is better than any king or queen in history.
Isn't
But
that
can you imagine going back to like no refrigerators, no internet porn, no Uber Eats? Like I would not take like no clean sheets. Like you just like I would. We're living in a time where we're better than any king or queen in history. We've got better access to all the information in the world. Like we're living in an amazing time.
We really, it's true. Thank you, Constellation Pegasus. I still find it insane that the church states the earth and man is 6,000 years old. Nothing but stupidity to think that the earth is 6,000 years old.
Well, you just gotta have faith. You just gotta have faith.
Right. You know, it's. I find this. I'm glad you brought this up because you'll get a lot of. I don't want to. There's a certain type of apologist that are very weaselly.
Oh
they know how to
weaselly apologists.
Weasel a lot of things, and when you bring this up, they'll say this. The Bible doesn't actually say the world's 6,000 years old.
And a day is like 1,000 years to God.
No, not even that. Let's put that aside for a second. I'll say, why would the Bible say the earth is 6,000 years old when the Bible was written?
Yeah.
Like the times are every day there's more time being added. What do you think that every year the new translation has to add this in there? No, the Bible gives us dates for events. Like this is very easy to figure out. We have an event for the Exodus. We have a date for that. We have a date for King David. We have a date for Hezekiah. We have all these dates, and when you put them on a timeline, you can map out when everything happened. And you cannot physically make the timeline of the biblical story past 7,000 years. Doesn't work. So the answer to that, when people say it doesn't say that, no, it does say that. Either the Bible's not true or it is. If you're a literalist, you think the world's 6,000 years old. You have no way around that.
Yeah. Well, you can look at the Hebrew Bible, I think, and say, I think the translation of Genesis 1 is a mistranslation. It's like, and the actual translation is in our beginning, not in the beginning, in our beginning. So like when God began to create.
But wait a minute, he's still talking about the earth being made, though.
Oh yeah. You'd have to throw out all of. But the universe could be older. Universe could be older.
You have to end up saying like something like Peter, like the book of Peter. A day is like 1,000 years. But like even that timeline, it doesn't fit because that's only 6,000 years extra. You know what I mean? You're only adding 5,000 or 6,000 years to the 6,000 days before creation. So you end up with a 12,000-year-old Earth. It's just as dumb. 6,000 and 12,000 are the same thing in the scam of millions of years. Is my audio going in and out?
No, it's fine. Here's the thing too. This is something I really questioned when I was like deconstructing my faith. It's like, the Bible if I believe that the Bible was inspired by God but written down by man, and it's mainly inerrant, right? But then we've got fossils and light from distant stars and all these things that were directly created by God. God created the earth. God created the universe. God created the light from distant stars. God created the fossils. God created all that stuff. Shouldn't God's direct evidence, as in not translated by man, be better evidence for the age of the earth than the words that were translated by man? Like, why are we looking at? We got first-hand evidence. If God created the universe, we can look at stars and go, okay, we can see light from 13.8 billion light years away. We can see fossils that, are clear evolutionary steps in life. Like, why wouldn't we use that as evidence? Because that's firsthand rather than taking the Bible, which is translated by man,
Right. It just doesn't make sense. Yeah. And Constellation Pegasus then says, forget about physics and history. Everyone, I offer you drink in a golden calf. Nice. But
that's awesome.
It's one of those things where it's like, if you want to just be real that these are myths, and then we can talk about the divine inspiration about it. But once you start talking about these are literally stories that literally happened, you're done. You lost.
Mm.
You lost You're done. You lost me. You're done.
Someone send us to Inspiring Philosophy so he can make some videos for us, please.
Right? Yeah.
Someone sent him a video. He said, "I'm too busy. Come on, buddy. You're always roasting other atheists about."
Yeah, he'll find some dumb thing that somebody said, and he'll be all over that one. A confirmation Pegasus.
I want to be roasted. Yeah.
Jews say the tower was built so they knock a hole in the dome. They wanted to know if it was made of clay, copper, or stone. Evidently, God wasn't cool with that. I don't know. I've been there.
It's insulting to God. Like, I often tell Christians they're insulting God. Like, stop telling us that God impregnated a virgin against her will. That God, told the Israelites to murder the infants of other nations. Stop telling us that God was angry and flooded the earth. Like, you're God. You stop teasing God. God wouldn't do that. Stop teasing God, Christians, and Islam as well. Like, stop teasing God. God isn't as pathetic as you would make him out to be if he existed.
Oh, this Joachim in the chat. I saw your comment the other day about the wrong Ignatius, and I'll go. I didn't know what you meant because we're talking about Ignatius from the 3rd century who got martyred. But I realized that you were talking about the image that I showed of was a different Ignatius, and you're right, it was. So good one on that one.
We need people like them to point that out because this is amateur hour. That's what we do.
Cat a question. Oh, okay, good. I'm trying to find more questions that are not. They don't have to be super chats. Oh, here we go. What's in your cup today, David?
Just coffee. It's for me. It was 6:30 when we started the stream. So, nice. 7 o'clock, 7 a.m. when we started the stream. Yeah.
Nice.
And I was up till like midnight playing Breath of the Wild. So.
Oh, really? How is that? Oh, Breath of the Wild, the new one.
Oh, no. Sorry. Tears of the Kingdom. Yeah.
Yes,
okay. It's all right. Like, I'm a game designer, like I used to be anyway. So like I could rant to you a lot about some of the decisions, but I think overall it's pretty fun.
Yeah. Oh, here's a question. Are these guys post-Christian? Yes, I am. I was a Christian for a long time. Got saved in prison.
I was a Pentecostal youth pastor. I've got a channel called Post Faith, actually, that I mainly post on Deep Drinks. But yeah, I used to be a Pentecostal youth pastor.
I do love Christian history. Oh, sorry, I cut you off. Go ahead.
No, I was finished.
I do love Christian history, and I do take it seriously. So, hopefully you can get something out of my videos.
Yeah.
Tumatra, thank you for coming in number. I think something's wrong with my audio. Is it going in and out or no?
No, it's fine. It sounds fine to me. Unless someone else is.
Thank you for becoming a member. I appreciate that. I really do. It's you're the reason why this channel. You're the reason why this channel can succeed and do what it does, and I can continue making these videos because people like you. So I really appreciate it.
I went and got this.
All the people who subscribe and send me super chats and who join the Patreon, every single penny that goes into there goes into these videos. And I try to put out as many videos. All I do is work. All I do is sit here and make videos. I don't do anything else. I have no life outside of this. I mean that. You can ask anyone that knows me. That's all I do. So if it's if you support me, thank you. You're the reason why this channel is putting out the videos that it is.
Yeah, it really does. And it's not just a financial boost. It's like a what's the word? Like when someone subscribes to Deep Drinks, it's cool. But when they become a member or they join the Patreon, it's like I'll run out and tell my wife, I'm like, I gotta do so good because the financial support is like it's emotionally well. I got this book, Neil. You told me to get this book.
Oh yeah, that's my favorite one. I got that right here. Yeah,
dude. And I read it for the first time last night because my roommate asked, Did Mary have consent?
I go to.
Did Mary give consent to be impregnated by God? And I pulled it open and I found that the word is actually Miriam, not Mary.
Oh yeah, that's the Greek. Greek is Miriam.
Miriam, yeah, that was so cool. But the Greek for Jesus is just Jesus.
Well, Ishus.
Well, in this it's a Jesus.
In Greek?
Or maybe not the Greek, but
because it has a New King translation next to the Greek. So if you're this text has Hebrew Old Testament, Masoretic text, And then it has the Textus Receptus, which is the majority text that was written by Erasmus, I mean, in the medieval era. But what he did was he took all the manuscripts in Greek, put them together, and made the majority text. Is what this is. So what you have is you have a Greek New Testament with English on the side, and then you have a Hebrew Old Testament with English on the side. And then in the back, you have all the variances of the text. They tell you how to. There's a way to look at those up. You want to look up the variant, like for example, 1 John 5:7, the Trinity verse. If you go to the Trinity verse, that doesn't exist in Greek. It's a Latin text.
Oh, that's.
But Erasmus added this in here. It's actually in this text. But he wrote in the back. There's a star on there. If you go to the back, it'll say variances, and then it'll say 27 words were added. Whoa! They added 27 words to the Bible.
Damn. There's but it says here, Luke 1:26, in the month of the angel Gabriel by God to a city of Galilee, to the woman was Nazareth, to a virgin has been betrothed a man, and the name was Joseph, of the house of David, and the name of the virgin was Mariam.
Yeah.
So is that that's not the King James though, right? That's like the exact translation of the word.
No, it's her name is Miriam. That's just her name. Miriam.
Why is it?
It's like Jonathan or something.
Because I know a lot of Christians, I know that a lot of even when we're saying prayers when I go to my family's house, like my extended family's house, they'll say Yeshua and stuff now because they think Jesus is almost derogatory. It's
even though Jesus' name is not written in Hebrew, it's written in Greek.
Yeah.
So what you're doing is you're using the Talmud reference to Jesus. It's fine. You can do whatever you want. It's your.
I know, but it's become the new when you're in church. This is a random aside again, but when you're in church, when I first started church, Hillsong was in, right, and everyone was praise and worship towards facing the crowd. Praise God, and then Bethel became really hot, and Bethel was like, you know what? This is my moment with God. No, I'm not even here. I'm not even playing for the crowd. And they started turning to the left. So people would be like, thank you, Jesus, praying to the left or even facing away from the crowd because they're just having their moment with God, right? It's Christians trying to one-up each other. And it's well, now I say Yeshua. Now I say Yahweh. Thank you, Yahweh. It's not instead of God or, it's funny. It's very...
Yo, thank you for this comment. Yes, sir. I could tell you take Christianity seriously. You guys can be yourselves and I'll be myself. We can all get along fine. I really want to make this I am very critical. Okay, I get that. And sometimes I can come off maybe a little too critical, but I am trying to open up the space a little bit and be a better source for everybody and that people who believe and people who don't believe. So I'm really it's nice to see someone say this. It really is. And it actually makes me want to be more maybe more accustomed to being aware that not everybody's a fundamentalist right wing. Not everybody's like that who's a Christian. In fact, most Christians probably aren't like that. So
100%. That's true. Look, my first mod on my Discord was a Christian. And I try not to make my channel. It's a lot very atheistic, but I try to I don't want it to be like an atheist happy hour where we all circle jerk about how good.
Right. And one of the people that helps me do a lot of my videos is a Orthodox Christian too.
Yeah, cool.
Max the Confessor, who's Orthodox, I think. IP's video on young Earth creationists is weird because the Third Council of Constantinople makes Carthage 419 binding on the full church, which makes a non-literal Adam anathema, and 600s church writers were young Earth creationists. Wow, I should look into that. I should check that out. And I'm friends with the Inspiring Philosophy. I'll ask him about this and see what he says. But Max knows the deal. Max knows about church history. Max has read everything: Irenaeus, Hippolytus, Justin Martyr, all that stuff. But yeah, so Max knows with that stuff. I take that. I think obviously you know what you're saying. Constellation Pegasus, thank you for the super chat. You guys need Ben Stanhope and Dr. Josh and others to go over to flat Earth and dome cosmology and Genesis again. Very entertaining to watch. Sona and popcorn event. Yeah, I was actually talking with Dr. Josh about doing a video about Tammuz, the god Tammuz, and and Ishtar. So I don't know when we're going to do that, but hopefully we will soon. That'd be kind of cool to do.
Yeah.
What do you think about that, Ben Stanhope? Ben Stanhope's pretty cool.
I don't know who Ben Stanhope is,
He's
but
been on Myth Vision a few times.
oh, really?
Yeah.
Ben Stanhope. Oh, cool. I'll have to check him out.
I love me some nerdy book boys. Thank you.
Caterpillar, can I explain to everyone where you are? Like, not where you are specifically, but like the town kind of, because no one in America will know what Nimbin is. Can I explain it? Just give us a yes or a no.
Yeah, I'm looking out to see if she does. You should get Margaret Baker on while she's still. That's a good idea. I've heard Margaret Baker is. I'm actually. I'll look. I'll send an email. Yeah.
Can I tell a drug story? Is that not appropriate?
Oh, just yeah. I said. She says, "Go on."
Yeah. Can I tell a drug story?
Yeah. Just don't get too. Don't.
Yeah. We'll get to it. So Nimbin is this town in.
Pay them.
Oh, sorry. Nimbin is this town that is like the weed town of Australia, but weed's always been illegal in Australia, right? So, but it's like they have the Mardi Gras, which is just like a big festival of weed. They have like Bring-a-Bong, like a shop called like Billabong is a clothing brand where Bring-a-Bong. They have like before, I don't know how you could get medical marijuana there before you could get medical marijuana. I just remember, but I remember back in my younger years, I went there and we kind of drove through the town and we got really we partook in the herbs there. And we're walking around and we went to a shop and because we went up to the cops were walking up and down the street and they know everyone's smoking weed and stuff. But I went to someone and I said, where do we get cookies? We want to get cookies. And they said, you go into the store and you ask for cookie number 9. And we're like, all right. So we like walk into the store. We're like, hey, can we have cookie number 9? They're like, we don't do that here. Get out of here. Like, and we're like, okay. Like you go out in the street, you'll find someone. They're really nice about it. I'm like, cool. We left. And as we left, someone from behind in the kitchen runs out and they run out to us and they come with the bag like, you guys cops? We're like, no. And they're like, do you want cookie number 9? I was like, yeah. We find these cookies. It was a wild experience. It's like a really cool hippie town. And I told my dad about it. My dad's like, Nimbin. He's like, oh, I got hepatitis when I was there in like Hep A or whatever. Not the he got really sick when he was from bong water in the 70s. He's like, oh, I was there in the 70s. It was so it's like, yeah, I just laugh. Caterpillar is they're in a cool town.
I just recently found out that if you cut a hole from where I'm at through the center of the earth, you would end up in Augusta. You're right off the coast of Augusta, Australia. So I'm literally here. I'm in Buffalo, New York. I don't hide my location. I don't give my address out or anything. But people know I live in Buffalo. I've said that before. I'm okay with that. But I literally live in the opposite part of the world as Australia. Like you can, it's the polar opposite of Australia.
What's it called? What's it called?
What town? Buffalo.
Augusta. Oh, Western Australia. Okay.
Yes, and if you poke a hole right through the whole earth, you end up off the coast of Augusta.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, I'm on the other side of I'm on the real side of Australia, the East Coast.
So it's morning for you and it's night for me.
Yeah, it's wild, right?
It's interesting. Let's start digging.
Neil.
That'd be crazy. I don't know. Anything else you wanted? Oh, let me plug your channel again.
I do want to say that I don't actually for real though I don't actually advocate like every time I smoke weed now I have like a panic attack and I'm sure there's a strand out there that I could get, but I don't advocate for people to do like drugs
right
for real or drink alcohol, mind you, because I think alcohol is worse. But thank you for sharing on my channel.
Definitely. Links in the description. You also have really good conversations with lots of different people on these subjects, and I recommend it. And so, yeah, check that out.
People who come over, you use the magic wand emoji. I see it pop up every now and again. That's like the Neil
the code
emoji. Yeah. So if you want to like come over and say hello, you guys, so many of you guys are awesome in watching the chat. But yeah, it's later today we're doing Finding ET, the sociological impact, and I think it's going to be a bit of a messy one because he wants to do a shot of Beiju, a Chinese liquor, the most popular alcohol in the world, and then start on beers straight afterwards. So and we're talking about aliens. So like, who knows what it's going to be? Like, I don't normally do aliens or anything like that. It's normally just religion, philosophy, human rights. But this book was it was close enough with religion, and it was just a good book. Yeah. Yeah, no, I definitely, I don't know if I'd even consider like cannabis like a proper, like when I say drug, let me just clarify. I had some friends who did like way too much like acid and get like in psychedelics and get like kind of stuck in a loop and went to the mental institution and everything. Like it was really bad for them.
Pretty dangerous.
So I tried, like I know there are some like there's some good therapies around shrooms and stuff that are happening now, like in some research. But I just want to like be clear that you know, it's fun to talk about drugs and stuff, and especially like us getting stoned. And also when we were in Nimbin, we took a little bit of acid in it. I wouldn't recommend it, but the point is like they're cool stories and stuff. But I always put that little, you know, just be careful, because, you know, people's mental health is a real thing, and sometimes these things can fuck you up. If I'm going through some bad stuff, like when you came on, Neil, last time you came on Deep Drinks, which if you scroll down, you should be able to find the episode if you go to live. If you click on live in the, you should be able to scroll down. You had an episode just recently. We decided we were both going through a bit of it. There we go, Isaiah 53. We were both going through a little bit. We were originally going to.
I recommend real quick before you say that, the one I really recommend, the one we did about the Gnostic Christians.
Oh yeah. That one there.
Where is it?
Up a little bit.
Oh, right here.
Yeah, to your right. Yeah, that's one of my most popular. Look at that, 4,000 views.
We were just gelling that one, and that one. So
Yeah.
if you want to check out another episode that you and I did, I recommend that one next.
That one's the best. So that one, we drank red wine in remembrance of the lost Christianities, the Christianities that are no longer there. But what I was saying is the most recent one, we were both meant to drink red wine again, and then we got there and we're like, look, I've been mentally not feeling the best. You hadn't been mentally feeling the best, so we just hit it with like non-alcoholic drinks, and that's what I advocate for. Like, use drugs and alcohol responsibly. Yeah,
exactly. Thanks, Joachim, for the smash that like.
Yeah, smash it.
So yeah, that's it, and definitely subscribe. And you have just attained true gnosis.
You have just attained true gnosis. The demiurge has no power over you.